Hello there, how are you, alright? My name's Tom Worker, W-O-R-K-E-R, worker by name, worker by nature. I lived in this town, you know, nearly all my life. Stratford's a rare old place, a very historical place. Just across the high street, there's the actual house, one of the oldest houses in the town, where the little prince was captured by Richard III and taken down to London and murdered all them years ago with his brother. And further up the high street, there's the old Bull and the Cock Hotel. Now, well, they're very old staging coach inns, you see. All the coaches used to stop there on their way up from London to Birmingham. And all the aristocrats used to go in there, and the farmers. And of course, over the period of time, they used to tell lots of tales and stories, and those stories became known as cock and bull stories, you see. And now that's known throughout the world. And also the nursery rhyme, Ride a Cock Horse to Banbury Cross. That used to come from here as well, you see, because they used to change the horses at the Cock Hotel. Now, you know, I remember all the shops that used to be here all them years ago. You used to have baker's shops and flower shops, and there were shoe shops, cobblers. Now, shoe menders in them days were known as snobs, you know. Yeah. And there used to be a saddler's here. Now, that was run by an Austrian. Now, he only got one leg, you know, and he used to go about on a crutch. And at that time of day, which of course was during the First World War, all the people around here used to say he were a German spy. But they got it all wrong, because he were an Austrian. Now, I remember the old cattle market at the front of the police station, and the pig market round the back, and the sheep market round the side. Oh, we've had some sport round here, I can tell you. What with bullocks running up and down the high street, yeah? Now I remember that I'm going to tell you a few stories about myself and some of the people that lived here all them years ago, because at that time of day there was a big vast difference. Now if you come along with me now, I'll show you where I was brought up. Now, I was born in 1902, Church Street, Wolverton. A family of four. There were three sisters, I was the third eldest, and mother and father, that made six. Now, this here place over here used to be the White Swan Public House. My father used to be landlord here. Well, he used to work in the railway works in Wolverton as a French polisher, but the fumes there affected his throat. He never ailed or nothing, but it seemed to affect him, you see, and the doctor said he'd be better off outside. Well, he didn't go outside, he went in the pub. Yeah, and mother used to work as a cook for tailors, and the mustard people, you know, in Newport, used to work there. Oh, they were big pots in them days, tailors were, you know. Well, family life was fairly plain, yeah. I mean, if you'd done anything wrong, you had to go to bed, girls and all. And my dad used to take his belt off to us. Well, he was a big man, you know, 18.5 stone with a 19-inch collar. Oh, he still whopped that strap round your arm, I can tell you. Well, you see, the thing is, there's a lot different then, you know. Kiddies weren't allowed to stay up late like they used to, like they do now, you see. And you had to go to bed by 6:30, 7 o'clock. And as you got a bit older, you could stay up a bit later. But the latest you were ever kept out was 10 o'clock. Because until you was of age, you was under your people. Now, I don't know of anybody what had them bringings up get into much trouble nowadays, you know. Of course, girls and boys used to play together quite a lot in them days, you see, yeah, football, that sort of thing. Well, girls used to wear the same old heavy boots as boys, with hobnails on, Blakeys we used to call them. You could hear them coming down the street. And we'd play things like, ooh, hoops and tops and whips and that sort of thing, and rounders was all the go then. You could go into a local field and play rounders or tree climbing, that sort. You could stay there until somebody chucked you out, yeah. There were no playgrounds, of course. And rounders, as I say, was all the go. And of course you could play marbles in the street here, you know, because there were no cars, just horses. And you'd be in the gutter there with your marble, trying to knock your mate's marble over the other side of the street. Oh yeah, you didn't have to worry about that sort of thing. Now, when I moved here at 6, I went to St Giles's School. That's this building here next to the White Swan. Quite handy really, because I could just nip over the wall, you see, to school, never late. And you went there from first standard to seventh standard. And first thing in the morning, 9 o'clock, you had scripture. The old parson used to come along, take you for scripture, very strict about that. And then at 10 o'clock it was arithmetic, of course. And then it was a break time, and your play time then, you see. And then afterwards it was English and geography. Oh yeah, all lessons then, you know, not like it is today. And the only time you actually went out of school was on nature study. The teacher would take you out, you'd all go to a local field, and he'd say, I'll give a penny to any boy that can give me a 4-leaf clover, you say. Of course you run round all over the place, you never find one. Some bit of a devil would always get a 3-leaf clover and stick another one on and take it to the teacher, and of course it'd blow off and you get a clate round here. Now the actual schoolmaster there was a man named Bradstock. He had a big waxy moustache, and oh by gum, I don't think there was ever a stricter man lived. He loved the cane. He used to get 6 across each hand, you know, and if you moved your hand away, bring it up, put you in the eye, you know, give you a black eye. And of course if it weren't pliable enough, he'd send one of the lads down the road to get a new stick, give him some pennies, and when he came back he'd bend it in front of him and say, well, you've been a naughty boy, I'm going to try this out on you. Yeah, well, I think it's fair to say that we all got the same treatment, you know. He never favoured anybody. I remember when the knit nurse used to come, what she had was this little 12-inch ruler, you see, and she'd scrape it through your hair, and if she found any knits, you had to go home. You got a paper, you see, and your mum would soak your hair in paraffin and water, leave it on overnight, and then in the morning it would clear, you see, gone away, and you go back again, and she gave you the all clear for it. But the teachers were very good, you know. They were, if any of the kiddies had got knits, they used to take them to one side, you see, tell them carefully, and but it soon got about. Someone would say, let's say, oh, she's had the knit nurse, she's got a paper, and it used to make the parents, oh, they used to get ever so worried about it. The mums used to cry about it, you know. Funny little thing, that, isn't it, really? Well, if you come along with me now, I'll show you some of the other schools that we used to have down the high street there, all them years ago. Now, you know, this place on the corner here, Public Hall, well, that used to be a school, you know, all them years ago, and that was a British school. And boys and girls used to go there, and when it got full up, the boys used to go around the corner to Russell Street, and the girls used to go over there, where the plough is now. That was St Mary's School, you see, girls' school only. Now, the little house next to it, that's where Mrs Meacham used to live. Now, she was the mother of one of the big wigs at the Crocodiles. Well, he came home one night, you know, and she was crying. He said, what's the matter? Well, she said, what had happened was that she'd gone outside to the toilet, opened the door, and there was a badger sitting in there. Well, blimey, frightened her to death, you see. Now, further up the high street, you got York Ace. Now, that was a private school. Now, boys and girls went there, of course, and you had to pay to have your kids to go there, and they got teachers for everything, French teachers, Spanish teachers, everything, you see. And that were run by a family called the Slades. There were 3 daughters and mother and father. He was a seaman on the old sailing ships. They were very strict there, you know. Oh yeah, very strict. And because I used to work there as a lad, I used to clean the shoes for the teachers. What they used to do is to get these old biscuit tins, put their shoes in them, or take them away and clean them and fetch them back again, you see. Oh, she was very strict that nobody should ever go out of the school with dirty shoes, you know. Yeah. Now, further up the high street, or the London Road rather, you got, where the garage is now. Now, you couldn't imagine anywhere further from the sea than Stratford, you know. But there used to be a blooming boatyard there, you know, Hayes Boatyard, yeah. They used to build the boats there, put them on trailers, and take them up the high street and launch them at Old Stratford. Yeah, at the bridge there. Can't imagine it, can you? But there were plenty of jobs for boys to do at that time of day. You could work as a lather boy with a barber, you see. You put the tail around them, and then later on lather them all up for the barber to shave. And as a lad, I used to have a paper round. I worked for Smiths down the High Street, and used to go all the way over to the Calverton and as far as Little Orwood, you know. Oh yeah, all that way. I used to have this big old red bicycle. Blimey, used to maul your insides out with that thing you did, you know. Yeah. And later on I got a job with Elms's, the ironmongers. Now I used to go in there before school and load all the coal and bring that all the coal and the wood in, and after school I'll go back and load all the carts up ready for delivery, you see, the next day. I also worked in a slaughterhouse as a lad. If you come with me round the corner here, I'll show you where that was. Yeah, now this here place, you see, behind what used to be the Co-op, was a slaughterhouse, and I used to work here as a lad. I used to hold the animals while they killed them. That was a good job, wasn't it? Yeah. Well, you see, at that time of day, everybody used to keep a pig or two in the stye, in their back garden, you know, the backyard. Yeah. You'd hang them up and cut them down and singe them, that sort of thing. Yeah, hundreds of people at that time of day used to keep a pig, because you fatten one up, you see, sell one and keep one yourself. And at Christmas, you'd take one to the butcher's, he'd kill it for you, and then you give some bits away to your friends, you know, bit of the shoulder, bit of spare rib, that sort of thing, bit of the liver, and that would last you then, you see, and you'd have them hanging up in that bits of ham in the house and bacon, that sort of thing. And they used to say at that time of day they were the best pictures you could have in the house, yeah. And my old mum, she used to have this little box in the back, which was just an ordinary wooden box with a thin gauze over the top, and you put the meat in there, you see, keep it cool in the back alley, and that was your fridge. We called it a meat safe, but it was a fridge really. But you couldn't store milk though. I used to have to go to Old Stratford for that, and when they delivered it, they used to bring it round in buckets and measure it out, half a pint, whatever it was. No bottles, you see. Now, you know, this old green's always been here as long as I can remember, and these trees have always been here. It's a little bit different now, you know, and these houses along the front here, they were new when I was born, yeah, and the ones on this side are a little bit older, about 100 years older than that, I suppose. Well, if we have a walk up the green, I'll show you a couple of the houses along there. We'll talk about them. You know, there used to be 3 doctors living in Stratford. There was Dr. Maguire, Dr. Powell and Dr. Bull. And Dr. Maguire used to live in the big old house over there, which is now Calverton Lodge Hotel, you see. He used to live there. And you go there to have your teeth out, you know. Oh yeah, no anaesthetic, pull them out, yeah. And they used to do operations as well. If you had tonsillitis, they used to take them out on your kitchen table, you know. And you'd have to go to bed for a day and then it'd be all right. Oh, blimey, they used to have to work for their money in them days, doctors did, you know, yeah. Next door is the dispensary, where they kept all the medicines, you see. Now, you know, at the last weekend of July, this place, it used to be alive. It used to come alive, it did, with the fair. Last 3 days in August. And the fair used to stretch all the way up from Market Square, you know, all the way up Silver Street to the green here. And you'd have Abbott's Fair and Billings Fair and Thurston's Fair. Oh, it was marvellous, you know. And they all had their own fairground organ, you see, and the noise, oh, it was marvellous. And you'd have horses along here and switchbacks and bumping cars, all the way up, yeah. As we go past at the top here, I'll show you that there's a little house on the corner there where this old lady used to sit, you know. She used to sit making lace, getting all the bobbins ready and everything. She used to sit in the doorway there. Elston was the name, Mrs. Elston. She had 3 daughters, and I think she was the last person to make lace in Stratford. If you come along with me, I'll show you where it is. This here place used to be the fire station, and it was a fire station for a number of years, and after that it was a library, and now it's a private office. But I used to work for the fire service, you know, when I was a lad, as a call boy. I used to have these little bells each side of my bed, and if there was a fire they used to go off, you see, and I had to run around getting all the firemen out. and the station superintendent used to live opposite. It used to be all cottages here, you see, and he used to live opposite, and he'd come out, open the gates, and we'd take the truck out and go and put the fire out, you see. Now that was an hand truck, so if you had to go all the way up the London Road, you see, it was, oh blimey, by the time you got there you was out of puff, you know, and then we had to pump it by hand. Of course later on they got a motor force, but we had that for a number of years. So we used to go out and help out down at Dean's Hanger and Potter's Perry, all over really, and we go for competitions. We used to go down to London, have a go at the old London Fire Brigade in a competition, and Wolverton, we go against them as well, because that was a private fire service there, you see. They used to take care of all the fires along the Stratford Road there. It was the railway works one. Yeah, and once a year we go to Blackpool on an outing. That was nice, yeah. And of course we had to go around collecting money once a year as well. You go around to the farmers, the tradesmen, the local aristocracy, whatever, and they'd all give you a couple of pounds, £3, £5, some of them would give a 10, because it was all voluntary, you see, and you needed that money to pay for your uniforms. Now, you know, when I left school, I went to work in the railway works as an apprentice. And you went there and you stayed there until you were 21, and then you had to leave, you see. And I went there as an electrician. Well, of course, when you first go in there, you get all the rotten jobs to do, and I had to go and see this chap whose name was Arthur Lowe. And he said, when I got to see him, he says, oh, have you ever been in the Navy? I said, no. He said, you never been to sea then? I said, no. He says, you never been in a storm at sea then? I said, no. Well, you know, they got hold of me, chucked me in this carriage and turned the blooming hoses on me. Yeah, well, we all got it. It was all right. Well, as I say, you stay there till you're 21. And the first jobs that you had before you got into your proper apprenticeship was things like blacking up, where you had to go in a pit under the carriage and scrape all the muck off and paint all the black on. Oh, blimey. You know those old overalls, you know, you could stand them up by themselves, you see. Covered it, they were. Well, I left there when I was 23, because you see, they were busy at that time. Normally you'd have to leave when you was 21, as I say, but they were very busy, so they kept me on for a couple of years. Because everyone was the same though. As soon as you reached that age, you had to go, because you had to go and make your own way in the world. Well, it wasn't a problem, you see, because at that time of day, when you'd done an apprenticeship in the works, they reckon it was one of the finest you could do, you see, in the country, and you get a job anywhere. Anybody employ you if you'd done an apprenticeship at the works, because they reckon it was the best in the country. Yeah. So, well, I was married then. I got married, and me and Gert, we went off to Luton, and I went to work at Vauxhall's in Luton, and we were in lodgings there. Well, I'd only been there for about 18 months. And that was the time of the general strike, and as soon as they found out that I was on the union at Wolverton Works, I got the sack. There was me and 86 others. They laid us all off, you see. I didn't know what to do. We couldn't do anything, so we came back to Stratford, and there was no work around, and I had to go and live with my folks, and Gert had to go and live with hers, you see. And you know, I reckon I walked around Stratford for about 14 months without a penny in my pocket. Of course you go for jobs and everything. I remember going for a job all in coal for 10p an hour, and when I got there somebody had offered to do it for 8p an hour, and I was clearing reeds in the river once all day. It was a day like this, hot sunny day, clearing these reeds, and when I got home in the evening my back was so burnt that my missus could pull the skin off in one sheet, you know. Oh yeah. And I went as far as Coventry. I cycled to Coventry, went on my bike, get a job, but couldn't get one. When I got there, gone, somebody else had got it. Well, at the finish, my missus, she started making these little pictures. What they were 3-ply wood, and she'd burn a verse in it, you see, and it'd say something like, to have a friend is to be a friend, and I'd paint all these little flowers on them. It got quite good actually, and she used to sell them. And we did all right for a time, made a bit of money out of those, but eventually it all ran out, because once you bought a picture you didn't want another one, you see. And I was talking to a chap over at Wakefield there, and he got this bed of lettuce to sell, and he said, did I want to buy them? I said, well, I ain't got no money. He said, well, I'll tell you what I'll do, as you sell them you can pay me for them. Well, you know, he had 5,000 of these lettuces. And I shifted the lot, you know. I did, yeah. I went round all the villages, everywhere. I had an horse and cart, and I shifted the lot, and I made enough money to buy my own horse and cart. And things started picking up then, you see, and I got my own fruit and veg business, and away we went. Well, we go along to the market square now, and I'll tell you a few more stories about that. Well, here we are in Market Square. See the old tree there? That was Wesley's tree, you see, where John Wesley preached all those years ago. And it's always been the same now. It's always been holler, no pep in it, you see. Well, you could get 6 or 7 lads in there, you know. Oh yeah, but it's always been the same. It's been burnt down and chopped about and everything, but it still seems to grow. Now, there's not as many shops here as there used to be. Up the top of the green there, where Cox Robinson is, that used to be Jackie White's, the tool man. He used to have a board outside his shop. It said that. It said Jackie White, the tool man. He was only a little chap, you see, a tool man. And it said, Market Square, Stony Stratford bucks. No chickens, no ducks. Our paint is our paint, our putty is our putty. Jackie White, Market Square, Stony Stratford. Yeah, that was him. Now the house over the other side there, which is now the Sundial House, that used to belong to Miss Perrin. She were a local draper, used to make clothes for women, that sort of thing. And as lads, we used to play outside their house, and she used to come out with a bucket of water and chuck it over us, you know. Oh yeah, well, we used to do it on purpose, of course. And there used to be a little old lady here whose name was Kate Smith. She used to do washing for everyone, and she used to go back and forward to the old Bull Hotel with a jug of beer, you know, all day long. How the hell she got to do her washing, I don't know. And if she made any money or not, well, she can't have done. It must have cost her a fortune in beer. Now the shop over there, which used to be Cowley's, they were the local bakers, old Arthur Cowley, you know. And I remember, well, this was up to the 60s, you know, people used to take their joints of meat. He used to fire up the ovens on a Sunday morning, and all the people around here used to take their joints of meat and cook them in his oven, you know, yeah. And that's all gone now, of course. Now every Monday fortnight here was market day. They used to come in early morning and get all the stuff ready, you see, all the pens and all the stalls out for the animals, and get it all packed in, and at 12 o'clock they'd start the auction, and all the farmers and drovers and bailiffs came here and they used to do the auction, and that went on till 4 o'clock, and then it was all packed away and swirled down and clear. You wouldn't even know there were a market here. Of course the old pubs were open all day, the Crane here and the King's Head over there. Now that ain't there anymore, that's private now, but that used to be the pub, the King's Head. And I remember this drover used to go in there, went in there one day, Phil Wesley his name was. He went in there and he must have had a few to drink because they wouldn't serve him, turned him out. Well, on his way out, he punched up, there's this plate glass door, very thick glass, and he put his fist right the way through it. And as he drawed his arm back through, he severed the main artery in his arm, you see. And he came outside, lay down in the gutter and bled to death. Well, they didn't know anything about hemorrhaging, that sort of thing, and of course they sent for the doctor, but it was too late, he was dead. And they do say on a wintry night when it's raining, you know, and the water's bubbling down the drain, that's not water, you know, that's Phil Wesley's blood. Yeah, that's a funny old place, that place, you know. There was if you go at the top of the stairs, there's a beam up there with a little hook on it, and years ago there was this sheep stealer, and he was hung at Aylesbury Assizes, and his mother brought him back here, you know, took him in that house, hung him up on the beam and charged people a penny to come and look at him. What do you think of that then? Well, let's just go over to the top of the square now, and I'll tell you a little bit about the fair when it came here. Well, remember I was telling you earlier about the fair that used to come to Stratford last weekend in August. Yeah. It was marvellous, you know, you'd have them all over here. That's my little house over there, you see. And I used to have engines outside it for those 3 days, going from early in the morning, well not early but fairly early, till 12 o'clock at night. Blimey, you couldn't move for the fumes in there, you know. But we didn't mind because it was such a marvellous time, all the excitement of everything, you see. And they used to have stalls for everything. They were selling all sorts of food. You get tripe, pigs, trotters, that sort of thing. There used to be a fella who used to stand opposite the council offices over there. He used to sell sausage and bread a penny. And he had a big frying pan. He'd fry it all up, you see, and all the sausages. Put them between 2 slices of bread. And that was it, you see. Everybody had some. All the fat dripping down. Oh, they were lovely, they were. But you know, he got had up for selling bad meat, taken to court for it. But he got away with it though. Well, there was no meat in it. It was all dripping and lard. Now over here, where the library is now, there used to be Taylor's moving picture show. Oh, that was marvellous. He was a marvellous man, tall, stately man, big top hat. And he used to stand out here and say, come and see the moving pictures, the first moving pictures. Come in, gentlemen, come and see him. And you'd all turn up, you see, and you'd stand there with your mouths open, never seen anything like it. This space over here was taken up by 5 cottages, you know. So there were about 25 or so people living in there. Well, sanitation, there weren't none to speak of. You just have to have 1 tap in the backyard and 1 toilet, outside toilet, of course. And when you went in there, you had to blow, keep the flies away before you sat down, because it was all buckets and no flushes, you see. And the muck cart used to come round, and you'd empty the bucket on the muck cart and you'd take it away to the farmer's field, you see. And you had to be careful when you went in there. If you went in there at night, or if you were sitting in there, you had to make a noise, otherwise somebody would come in and flush you. Didn't see you, so you had to be making noise while you was in there. Yeah. Now, I was working on the old fruit and veg, and my missus, for some reason, volunteered me to join the special police. Sergeant Rollins had asked her if I'd be a volunteer. Well, she didn't ask me, but just volunteer me, you see. Well, apparently I'd seemed to have the right temperament for a policeman. So I did. I joined the special policeman. Still kept up the fruit and veg though. Now if you come with me round the other side there, I'll tell you a little bit about myself and the time in the police force. Now, you know, there's always been fires in Stratford over the years, and there was one particular fire where this maid was doing some ironing in the CoOp Hotel, and she scorched the sheets. And so she shoved the sheets up the chimney so she wouldn't get found out. Well, of course, these caught fire, and well, it burnt all the way down the high street, you know, as far as the old church. It burnt the church down as well, and it took 137 dwellings with it. And we used to play in that churchyard as kids, because they reckon there was a gravestone there that said, here lies a man who did no good, and if he'd lived he never would. Where he is and how he fares, nobody knows, nobody cares. Well, we never found it, of course. Now, just before the Second World War, I was still a special constable and still on the old fruit and veg then, you see. And when the war broke out, old Sergeant Rollins says to me, he says, how do I fancy becoming a proper policeman, a regular? Because, you know, they're signing you up to go to war and everything, and we need you here as a special constable, as a proper constable. So I thought, well, why not? I'll do that. I went away and did the exams and everything, and come back as a regular constable then, you see. And I was a policeman until I retired. So I remember on one occasion I was standing on the corner there over by the CoOp Hotel. Mrs. Tennant came out to see me. She was the landlady, and she got this difficult customer. And she told me about it. He said this chap came in and he ordered a meal and everything. We were going to stay the night, and had a glass of whiskey and some players, and then decided he had to move on, he had to go. So he was going to pay for the meal and go, and she gave him the bill with 19 shillings and a few coppers. And he put 2 shillings on the table and said, that's it, that's all you're getting. She said, what do you mean? It's 19 shillings, where's the rest of the money? He said, no, he said, that's all you're getting. So she calls me over, you see. So I says to this chap, have you got enough money to pay for this? He said, yes, and he opened his wallet, he got oceans, you see, 10 bob notes, pay notes, everything to cover the bill. So I says to Mrs. Tennant, I said, well, there's nothing I can do about it, you know. She says, I know you can. I says, I can't. So she phones up the sergeant, explains the story to him, and he says, well, the constable's right, he can't do nothing about it, you know, because he's not obtaining goods under false pretences. He's got the money to cover the bill, so it's a civil offence. Nothing to do with the police, so if you want to take action, you've got to take him to court. Of course, she couldn't be bothered, yeah. Wouldn't bother for that sort of thing, you see. And this chap had been all over the place trying this out, you know. They knew about him, nothing they could do about it. But eventually they caught him because he'd gone to some place and they laid on a big service for him and everything, and he didn't have enough money to pay for it. And he eventually got caught. But we've had a few characters in Stratford over the years. There was one chap, Teddy Ratcliffe. He was a bit simple. He was a carrier, lived out in Yardley Way, and he used to come into Stratford every day with his handcart, fetching and carrying for all the people in the villages. He'd carry messages for threepence, you see. Well, he'd haul a ton of coal, you know, for a tanner. And he'd come in and pick up Mrs. Jeffcott's medicine or whatever and take it back. Well, I used to have a bit of a laugh and a joke with him because, as I say, he was a bit simple, and I used to take him in the pub round here and get him a bit tight, get him a bit dizzy. But eventually they felt sorry for him, because imagine coming all that way with an handcart each day. And they bought him this donkey. And all the tradesmen around here paid money into it, you see, and they bought him all the proper harness and everything, and they made a photograph of him outside the hotel there, and with him sitting on his cart with all the people all around him, yeah. And he had a donkey and a cart now to take about all over the place. And I remember one day he came into Stratford and it started to rain. Of course, the old river's flooded, and Teddy couldn't get out again because the donkey wouldn't go through the water. So what he did, he got this whip and tied a carrot on the end of it and dangled it in front of the donkey. And of course the donkey went forward a bit, and then he'd move the carrot away, then he'd put it back and forward again, and he'd go move it away, and that's how he got through the water, yeah. Well, the thing is, he got a bit negligent, because he never used to feed the blooming thing, you see. He had a place where it could graze and everything. We never used to feed it. And he came into town one day and says to somebody, you know, the donkey had died, you see, just turned over and died. And he came into Stratford and he said to somebody, well, you know, that's the first time he served me that trick. But he was back on the handcart again. He was a proper character. There was another chap here called old Teddy Whiting. He was a real comedian, he was. He was a local painter and decorator. He lived in a village, Yardley, I think, or Pottsbury. And he was a painter and decorator. Blimey, there's a noisy old crow. And but he used to sell bits and pieces on the side. Laces, braces, that sort of thing, you know. And I remember he came into town one evening, we was all in the pub having a pint and playing darts, and he got all his bags of nuts. And we all bought some to eat with our pint, and off he went. Well, we started opening these nuts, cracking them, but there was nothing in it, you see. There were a few that had rotten nuts in them, but they was all empty shells. So they started rearing up and saying, oh, we'll get hold of that Teddy, we're going to get hold of him. Well, he come back in later and someone jumps up and said, these nuts you sold us, Teddy, they're no good at all, there's nothing in them. Oh, Teddy said, well, you shouldn't blame me, it's the factory's fault, not my fault. He said, I'll tell you what I'll do, you gather up all the shells, give them back to me, and I'll take them back to the factory and get them refilled. How's that? Of course he never did. A proper character. And I remember when he moved into Stratford, it was dark when he moved in, it was night time, and he got all the furniture on the floor, and his missus were there, and he pops down the road for a couple of pints, and he come back, and as I say, it was dark, couldn't say nothing, and she said to him, you drunk, Teddy? He said, yeah, of course I'm drunk. She said, well, settle down. And he said, where's the chamber pot? and he's feeding her. She said, it's over there. Well, he gets hold of it, a chamber pot, and she said, what's all this water coming everywhere, Teddy? And she struck a match, and he was blooming doing it in a colander. A real comedian he were. And then of course there was the chap, and this was a dirty trick it was, and nobody ever knew what happened, who did it, but somebody sent this card around to all the pubs and hotels, saying, in a nice little printed card saying, could they meet Rosa Brain at Castlethorpe Station 9 o'clock on such and such a day. Well, they were always proud of their carriages and broughams then, you see. They used to have all the brassware polished and everything, all the hotels and pubs. And of course, on the day that arrived, they all was up there, you see. Now, the lane that leads up to Castlethorpe Station, there were blooming hundreds of these horses and carts there, and carriages. And one would say, oh, hello, Bill, what are you doing here? He said, well, I've come to pick up Rosa Brain. What are you doing here? He said, I'll come to pick up Rosa Brain as well. Blimey, hello, Fred, what are you doing here? And they'd all come to pick up Rosa Brain. And of course, 9 o'clock arrived, the train arrived, and there was nobody on it, of course. Nobody called Rosa Brain, and it was all a joke, a dirty joke. And if they caught him, you know, they'd have made mincemeat out of him. And some people say it was Teddy Whiting, but he, of course, never admitted to it, and it may not have been. Well, we've got one last stop on our journey, and I'll take her around there now. Well, here we are in the last part of our little walk around Stratford. You know, people these days are a lot better off. There's no doubt about that. Pensioners, that sort of thing. You see, at that time of day, you had to go on your hands and knees to beg for help. I used to send this chap around from the Board of Guardians, a real hard nut, and he'd bring the old people onto the doorstep, you know, make them cry, let everybody know you were there. I've seen him myself and told him off about it. And that's the sort of thing that used to happen. So they're a lot better off. But there were some good things that used to happen. There was a chap round here, Charles Woolard. There was no finer man, you know, he was a very good man. He used to say to me when I went around on my fruit and veg, saying that if I knew of any pensioner that needed help, was hard up, I was to write their name down on a bit of paper and give it to him, let him know. And he'd go around and help them out, and he did. He used to go around and help all these old people out, give them a bit of money and that sort of thing. Very, very good man. Now, you know, if I had my time all over again, I'd still like to be born in the same place at the same time, because there's been so many inventions, so many marvellous inventions. You're never going to see the like again, I'm sure of it. I mean, I remember the old cylinder gramophone with a trumpet on it. And then you had wireless, of course. And now you've got stereos and colour television, videos, that sort of thing, everything you want. And people can do what they like now, you know. They spend their time gadding about, playing bingo and dancing, that sort of thing. Now, at my time of day, you didn't have all that. You had to amuse yourselves. Well, that's why there were so many large families, you see. You had to go to bed and play. But as I say, I'd do the same if I had it all over again. I'd still like to be born in the same place. Although things are still different now, you know. Take Sundays. You can do anything on a Sunday these days. You go shopping even. Now, you know, I remember the local Bobby catching the blacksmith working on a Sunday. He went round there and he said, what are you doing? And he said, I'm minding my own business. What do you think I'm doing? He said, don't you know it's Sunday? He said, it's not, it's Monday. He said, no, it's Sunday. And this blacksmith didn't realise, and when he did, he took his apron off, put his fire out and went home. Because it was Sunday, he didn't do anything. And another thing that you don't see these days is tobacco chewers. You used to buy half an ounce of old twist, cut bits off and chew it and spit it out. And if you wanted to save a bit, you took it behind your hat and let it dry out and you smoke it later. All those sort of things you don't see anymore. I hope you've enjoyed our little walkabout around the town. Everybody knows me here, you know, it's Tom this and Tom that. All the doctors, they all know me. And I hope you've learned a little bit about Stratford and what it was like when I was a lad, because there was a big vast difference at that time of day. So So now I think it's time for a nice cup of tea.